So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, whatever part of the world you're currently listening and watching our video blog. Okay, folks. So, today's Tuesday, and I believe today's the 13th, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me, because I didn't check my calendar today, but I think today is the 13th of May. Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday afternoon. The temperature finally, let me check exactly what the temperature is. So we're hovering around 75, okay, and it's been in the 90s the last couple of days. So haven't been able to go out for a walk because it's so hot, and I think I needed, a little bit of exercise, but I just never had the chance to go for a walk. So anyway, what I was saying is we're close to the end of the month, June the 13th, right? So we got a couple more weeks to go. Did I say May? I may have said May. I meant June 13th. Yeah, so I was working on a project and thought I'd go ahead and take a break. So I'm a little loopy right now. I apologize, but bear with me. It is actually, one of those years where got quite a bit of celebrations going on in the country. Tons of celebrations going on, given that we're gonna be celebrating the 250th anniversary of the country, July 4th. So we're gonna be talking about things that we should be grateful for, things that we've been blessed with, and things that we could definitely improve 250 years later. All right, folks, so I'm not gonna try to just sound negative or anything, but I will try to bring context to our overall journey as a country. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about things that we ought to be grateful for. I'm kind of close to the road here, so I'm gonna try to pay close attention to traffic until I get to a safer section where I can just enjoy the brisk walk that I'm currently engaged in. So like I said, I'm not going to focus on a negative. I'm not going to overly emphasize on negative things, because this is not about whining or being a sourpuss. This is about reflecting on the overall years that we evolved. 150 years. The little bunny there. Little bunny, right? It's a baby bunny. Yeah, so what I was saying is that I'm going to focus on the blessings, things we ought to be grateful for, and then I will share some of the things that I've noticed recently that I believe should be addressed also. So let's start off with things that we ought to be happy, joyful, and grateful for. All right, so America has been faced with a lot of challenges in recent decades. And in spite of those challenges, both domestic and international, and in spite of those challenges, we managed as a country to persevere and to find a way to make things a little bit more bearable for our population and, you know, overall people. And somewhat, you know, I'm somewhat optimistic that we're going to continue to be that country in which we are able to support capacity building and basically, you know, continue to be that country that every other country would like to become one day. So that's something that we want to be thankful for. Also, our economy has always been blessed via our overall strategy and market advantage that we've promoted and increased ability on, making sure that we're marketable, making sure that we can compete, making sure that we have enough purchasing power, and keeping our society and country, you know, very productive in many ways. All right, so we also are a country that, in spite of all the challenges in terms of social issues, that we managed to find a solution one way or the other. Okay, folks, so that's something that we ought to be grateful for. We should also be grateful for, you know, our population that are stepping up to the plate, that wants to serve our country. Because serving in public office is not an easy task. Okay, we should be grateful that we still have individuals that are wanting to, you know, put their name out there and find a solution to some pre-existing conditions and issues that our country's having to deal with for many years, not just recently, but, you know, for decades. So that's something that we ought to be grateful for, that we still have people that is willing to go through the challenges, the ups and downs of public office, and, you know, basically support our country. Okay, folks. We also should be grateful for the fact that, in spite of all these turmoils around the world, wars and conflict, many of it is not really affecting our market or our society. Not like during World War II or World War I, in which, you know, many of our soldiers are engaged and having to deal with, you know, traveling and going abroad to fight. So we're still pretty fortunate as a country that our military is not engaged in a conflict abroad. So that's something that we definitely need to be thankful for as a country and society. Furthermore, I think we should be thankful for, you know, our populations that are willing to take risks. You know, members of our community, or communities that are still wanting to, you know, go out there on a limb and compete and take risks. Because these risk takers are the ones that innovate. They're the ones that create opportunities, and they are the ones that promote market growth. And these entrepreneurs are definitely a blessing to our country. So if you know an entrepreneur, they're the ones that are going to be helping stimulate the market economy and create jobs. And so, you know, make sure to be thankful and grateful for their contribution. All right, folks. So 250 years on, what have we learned? We've learned quite a bit. You know, we are very blessed, even though we're a young country and a young society. We are very blessed, and I wanted to make sure that I emphasize on this video blog regarding how fortunate we are as a country, as people, and as a community. Okay, because we are by far one of the most blessed people on planet Earth. Okay, folks. And sometimes we forget how blessed we are. Okay, and that's why this particular video blog is a reflection of our current social standing in the world, and then how did we evolve, and then what have we learned, and what else needs to kind of be improved on. Okay, folks, so I'm going to talk about these issues for now. As I said, I'm going to start off with the positive, and eventually I'm going to transition into some of the things that definitely needs to be improved in our country. I think that it's important that we reflect on the balance, situation within our society, so that we can address issues as they arise and as they continuously permeate within our country. So, with that said, let's go with things that needs to be improved on. Did I miss anything as far as what we should be thankful for? Maybe let's continue with what we should be thankful for. I think I have a few more minutes to be walking towards my destination, and then we'll talk about things that we ought to be grateful for. Okay, and then talk about some of the things that we need to be improving on. So like I was saying, we're the most blessed people on planet Earth, and I think we need to consider certain things that there are individuals outside of this country that simply will never get access to the things that we have access to in terms of opportunities, resources, education, jobs, things like that. So I want to kind of focus on these issues. Our diplomatic strategy has improved significantly in America. Many of our influences have been firmly, put in place and stabilized by our diplomatic corps. We still tend to dominate the world in terms of our diplomatic strategy, mission, and objectives to stabilize these countries. So we ought to be very grateful for that. Now, things could use some improvements. There's plenty. So just last night I found out that a gentleman, 77-year-old gentleman, was jumped outside of Walmart, okay, in Virginia. 77-year-old man was gang up on by 3 individuals that are half of his age, and this gentleman ended up suffering and dying a few hours later. So think about what's going on when a group of individuals that are under 40 years old would jump a 77-year-old man, attack them violently, okay, that's just how it certain events unfold when people doesn't have any control or has no way to manage their anger. So anyway, yeah, so the guy was I believe shopping at a local Walmart and got into some sort of an argument with the staff, a young lady, and the young lady ended up calling you know, her parents, and the parents came packed. They were packing and was ready to rumble, not knowing that they're age a 77-year-old. Anyway, so we definitely need to address these kinds of issues: violence, hate, racism, in a way that people can learn from the events, not just, you know, let it roll off their backs and shrug it off and sweep under the rug. Okay, folks, so that definitely needs more of an awareness treatment from the public. So what else has been going on? Yesterday, or was it yesterday or Sunday? No, it was Sunday actually. I was watching the World Cup, and you know, the World Cup is every 4, 5 years, 6 years event. Actually 4 years. And it was basically disrupted by a UFC fight that was hosted by the White House. Okay, and they were showing the World Cup at the venue where I was at, and then when the UFC fight got on, they, you know, basically put the game, the World Cup game, on a smaller screen, and we weren't able to really enjoy it. Now, it's not about, you know, the World Cup being put on a smaller screen and the fight being put on a larger screen. It's just that my issue with it was that why would we celebrate our 250th birthday promoting aggression, violence, and Neanderthal behavior? I just don't get it. Why would anybody want to support something like that in celebration of our 250-year anniversary as a country? I don't know if you guys are aware, but there's this boneheads by the name of Tate brothers who are UFC fighters that have basically attacked and marginalized women in Eastern Europe. And I think they've also attacked women in England. So are these the kind of behavior and people that America should support and celebrate? I don't think so. Okay, I mean, we've got enough violence in our society. Like I was saying, a 77-year-old grandpa was attacked by 3 people. That is, oh, look at this, trying to do a acrobatic stunt on one of these leaves. So all right, folks, so let's see if there's any turtles around here. Oh, there are some. They're lobbing their head right there. So see what's going on here. Oh, there's big ones over here. And the snapping turtles. Okay. See you later. Enjoy yourself. How you doing? So they're in there just swimming around. So let's see if there's more. The giant ones didn't come out today. There's another turtle right here. And some on the branch. They're falling. I don't know if y'all can see them, but they're right there on the branch. All right. So, yeah. A 77-year-old grandpa was jumped by 3 individuals that are half his age, and he ended up dying because those individuals couldn't handle their anger. Okay, folks, they couldn't stop themselves and their behavior from invoking violence upon an old grandpa, 77 years old. How much harm can a 77-year-old grandpa do against people that are half his age? He wasn't even, he didn't have any weapons on him. And those individuals that attacked him did have weapons on him. They were ready to, inflict bodily harm on a grandpa. All right. And then we have the White House hosting a UFC match, okay, in front of the White House and promoted throughout the country. Okay, so I believe that we could definitely improve and make things better for our society without violence. I mean, me personally, I believe that there are ways for us to improve our society without having to engage in violence and not promote violence, especially. All right, folks, so what else have taken place recently now that we're celebrating 250th anniversary of America? What have we learned? Have we become a better society? Okay, 250 years later. Y'all be the judge of that. So what else needs improvement in our country? Politics. As I mentioned earlier, I support and honor as well as celebrate politicians and individuals that wants to serve. But unfortunately, 250 years later, we have politicians that still serve themselves only. And so they're only out there for themselves. They're not out to serve public. I can think of several of them that I'm not going to name names, but I know several of them that are definitely just, looking out for their long-term power in public office rather than serving the public. We only have less than a month to go before we celebrate July 4th. Okay, folks? And we need to carefully think about who it is that we put in power. Okay? Because these individuals could set the motion in which there is no point of return for us. We will never be able to reverse their actions and events that took place based off of their policies and behaviors and overall ego, pride. So we need to consider the overall ramifications of the actions of the self-serving politicians we have in power today from both parties. I'm not just talking about one specific party, but from both parties. Granted, I run as a Republican because I've always been a conservative, but I believe there was a lot of room for improvement in our country when it comes to politics. Matter of fact, there's this one lady from South Carolina. I've called her out on this many times. Her name's Nancy Mace, and she wanted to create a law stating that only U.S.-born citizens should be allowed to run for public office. So in a way, she's what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even get it out. Insinuating that if you're born overseas, then you're not going to be, dedicated and loyal to America. That your allegiance is not to America, rather than to the country where you were born in. Now, I'm not saying she's wrong. Maybe there is some truth to that, but a vast majority of foreign-born Americans does look out for America's best interests. Okay, and there are U.S.-born citizens that are corrupt, evil, nefarious, egotistical, prideful, that are not looking out for America's best interests. Okay, folks, so never generalize a population based off of criteria that they don't have power over. You don't know where you're gonna get born in. I mean, you don't know the location where your mom's gonna give birth. So how can you be faulted for that? All right, folks. So I just wanted to emphasize that not all foreign-born citizens would have 100% allegiance in the country or to the country where they were born in. I mean, some do. I see, these cars with little tiny flags on them of places where people were born in or support. So I know that there are some people that tend to have that kind of allegiance. But a vast majority do not operate that way. So what I was going to say is we definitely need to have a heart-to-heart discussion regarding these kinds of issues, because these are the triggers that could destabilize a society. Okay, folks, and 250 years later, we're still fighting over birthright issues and race and all sorts of very unproductive and asinine issues. Okay, folks. So I think it's something that we need to reflect on. I'm getting ready to head back to the park because there's way too many cars here and traffic is too loud, and you guys will not be able to hear me. So please stay with me here, and I'll try to find a quieter place to do our video. Just didn't have a whole lot of location to walk through. Unfortunately, not in this area where it's going to be quieter. But anyway, what I was saying is that I just want you guys to reflect on where we are today as a society, as a country, 250 years later. I think our celebration should be a celebration of reflection, not these grand, events that has no real meaning. Okay, folks, a UFC fight I know it was for the, birthday of the president. I realize that, but it should not be a part of the America's 250th anniversary. Look, I'm a conservative. I support majority of what the Republican Party and what the conservative movement support, but I do not condone or would ever condone violence, which was depicted in that UFC fight in a way that, they operate like they're cavemen, like they're just Neanderthals that are out there to inflict harm, bodily harm on other people. So, I think the 250 years that America evolved as a country should be reflected by our evolution. We should talk about things that we went through as a society, as a country in the last 250 years, and how we've become today and how we improve, if we've even improved. I mean, for the most part, I don't know if we did improve. It's like we're recycling the same old garbage from the past. So I think we need to reflect on, what we've learned, lessons learned in the 250 years that we've been as a country. So I think that's important. All right. You can't celebrate something that you don't really know why you're celebrating. Okay. I mean, it's a great way to party, to unwind and relax and enjoy our festivities. But this is the first and last time we're ever going to celebrate 250 years in our lifetime. None of us celebrating the year 2026 will be alive 250 years from now. So we might as well learn from the evolution of our society, not be stuck on stupid and celebrate as if we didn't learn anything. Okay, we celebrate because we learned something, we've improved, but we need to have better decision makers as far as our celebration goes. All right, folks. So let's see. What else is happening in the next couple of weeks? So there's going to be the tall ship celebration that will take place throughout the state, and that should be a very, very neat event to watch. Ships from around the world, I think about 60 countries, will be parading. So I look forward to experience it. Okay, folks. Anyway, we shall see whatever else will take place in the next couple months, leading up to 2027. But I think in the year 2026, we ought to celebrate our 250-year anniversary a little bit different than the way that we typically celebrate July 4th. I think that's very imperative for us to consider a new way of distraction. If we're going to be celebrating, we need to, kind of emphasize our growth rather than our, misgivings and shortcomings, because there's plenty of that going around already. Everybody's pretty much guilty of making America not so great. So making America not so great, we're all guilty of that. All right, folks, so I wanted to make sure that you guys understand that this celebration, the 250-year anniversary of America, will never happen again ever in our lifetime. Okay, it'll be the next, generations of Americans, 250 years before America's 500-year anniversary will take place. And America's going to look very different by then. Some of these children will not even be around. Yeah. So some of them will not be around, and it's going to look very different. As a society, as people groups here in America. All right, folks. So I just wanted to, get you guys to think about some of these things. So, yeah, because it's so easy for us people to be distracted by the glitz and glamour of, the fireworks, the bands, the concerts, the circus show. We often forget what it took for this society to become America today. Civil rights movements, the marginalization of voiceless, the powerless, the outnumbered, okay, the lack of resources for a certain segment of a population. All right, let me go back in where it's quiet. There are quite a bit of oppression going on till to this day. Especially marginalizing communities, okay, that are voiceless, powerless, and most of the time quiet. So that's just the reality of things for folks, unfortunately. And so those are the things that we need to reflect on in the year 250, as we celebrate America, and find a way to limit those events in our society. To be honest, I didn't think that I'll be who I am today. I mean, I wanted, when I was a young boy, I wanted to, do other things, like travel the world and build countries and societies around the world. In a way, I'm still doing it, but nowadays it seems like I'm promoting civil rights issues more due to my own personal and professional experiences. Okay, I'm not saying I'm bitter about it. I'm just saying that as we grow older, we need to mature and to learn from our experiences, good and bad, and impart that knowledge with the public, with other people, so that they can learn from it. Okay, but nowadays, if you speak up, if you share your story, you've been marginalized, discriminated against, and civil rights violated, they silence you. Okay, they don't even give you a platform, and that seems to be the case. All right, folks. How you doing? And so, yeah, that's just how things are, unfortunately. You know what? And those needs to be addressed. If we truly want to be great as a society and a country, we have to take on tough issues. Okay? We can't cherry pick which ones to just talk about and fix and provide a solution to, especially if it's a social issue, because every single one of us wants to be heard. It doesn't matter what your race, ethnicity, background is. Every human being wants to be heard. That's just a part of our nature. okay? And if we don't do that service, if we don't provide the opportunity for people to speak their minds and voice their concerns, it's going to be bottled in, permeate until that individual or community or group of people explodes and become violent. It's happened here many times. Okay, so you do not want people to bottle in their anger and frustration and discontent. You want people to talk about it. I mean, I've learned quite a bit from my own experiences, in which I discuss and talk and openly share my experiences for me to cope with it. Because once you bottle it in, who knows when you're going to explode at the wrong time or wrong place with the wrong people on the receiving end. All right, folks. All right, so I see over there they have a 250-year anniversary flag. It's at the American Legion. It's a clubhouse for former military personnel. Anyway, I just want you guys to consider what I'm talking about, because if we truly want to make America great, I'm not talking about again, again it means it's in the past. We need to make America great in the future ahead. So you have to say America, make America great, period, because you want people to look forward to making America great, better for everyone. Okay? That's why we're in the year 250th anniversary of a great country that we can make even better and greater if our mindset is to make the future great for everyone. But if we try to reverse the future and make it look like we're returning to the past, then we're going to operate based off of what was great at that time. So before the internet was around, before all these, human sophistication and education, technology, health, innovation were around, America wasn't that great. Okay, America is greater today, and it will continue to be greater in the future if we focus on our capacity building strategy and not based off of our wanting to return to the past. It's like back to the future, except we're going back to the past. No society and no people benefited from returning to where they were. And to be honest, back then wasn't all that great. Imagine in the 19th, we had segregation, we have human civil rights issues, a lot of racial tension. We had a lot of problems into the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s in the country. So we stabilized in the 1980s, 90s, the 2000s because of technology. Okay, I'm not saying technology was the only reason, but most of it because we've gotten more sophisticated and efficient in how we work and how we interact with each other. That's the reality of things, folks. That's why, as a conservative and someone who ran as a Republican, I realized that America could be better, okay? Regardless of the era, regardless of who's in power, if we as a society are collectively interested in the betterment of our country, meaning everyone's given the equal opportunity to succeed, equal opportunity to get access to resources, equal opportunity to advance. When you keep people, at the bottom, and they sense that their financial and economic mobility is being rationed to them, then they will not want to serve. They will not want to contribute. They will not want to participate in making our country great. Because no matter what they do, they will be at the same predicament and level that they've always been. So that's important that you guys acknowledge that overall condition. All right, folks. So with that said, going back to our 250th anniversary, we need to be grateful for. We are blessed as a society. We are blessed as a country. We can't possibly whine and bitch for not getting what we want. We have to work for what we want. We have to go out there, take risks, fail if you need to, fail as many times as you need to, but don't give up. Okay, folks? And this is coming from somebody who's failed more than I've succeeded. Okay? And I'm not giving up. I think it's important that you guys understand that we are in charge of our destiny. Yes, there will be people out there that will sabotage us. There will be people that will hate us. There will be people that will be jealous, envious of us. There will be people there that will definitely hate on us and attack us. But guess what, folks? You are in charge of your destiny. So, with that said, I want to wish you all a happy 250-year anniversary of America. And we will continue our video blog on celebrating America's 250th anniversary. Please share, like, and subscribe to our channel. Tell your friends and family about the faceconomics concept and our campaign, so that they know that we are trying to make this country, America, and the world in general a better place for everyone. With that said, folks, thank you for your time. My name's Al Mina, faceconomics concept author. Until we meet again, take care.